The president wants to spy on 200 million Americans without a warrant. Has he read this document, which he was sworn to uphold?
Now, I will not have you libel Abraham Lincoln.
I don't understand the problem with registering guns. We register cars.
Mark Levine brings you the news the government doesn't want you to know.
Today, an explosive story about connections between white supremacists and Islamic terrorists.
When there's a conflict between Scalia's conservative values and the Constitution of the United States, he throws away the Constitution.
When we do have secret prisons, that is not what America's all about.
Let's go to Mark in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening, America. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. We're in that period of December where everyone scuttles around and tries to be as busy as possible because they all know that the last 2 weeks of December, not much is going to happen. I think Congress is in the same situation. We're going to talk about a budget deal, although we don't know much about it, that they actually managed to cobble together. We'll see if it lasts through January. And also talk about President Obama gave a big speech on income inequality. I think it's one of the big issues that America is facing today. And I think I have an ally in this fight in the Vatican. I'm going to talk about Pope Francis as well. Also, the NSA spying on us more than ever. Call me unsurprised, but equally alarmed to as I was 6-7 years ago when I first talked about that. And the Iran deal. It's only 6 months. What does it mean for the future? Lots of difficult questions. Here to help me answer them is Mike Lane, Republican strategist with Intelligent Strategies. And you too can call in and join the discussion. Just give us a dial at 571-749-1166 or 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275. Mike, I want to start with the issue of income inequality. It's something that President Obama devoted a major speech to. And at a time when the economy is improving, I think even the curmudgeons over there in your party would have to agree when unemployment is at 7%. We are definitely on the rise as an average in the nation. But what you find is that most of that money, the lion's share, 90% of the money or so, is going to the top 1 to 5%. Corporations are getting richer. They have loads and loads of cash. The Dow and the S&P couldn't be higher. But for ordinary Americans, they are really struggling to get by. And this is something that President Obama wants to focus on. How about your party?
I think we would love to focus on that, Mark. The best thing we can do is create an economy that grows, expands, and creates jobs for Americans who are looking for them. More than 11 million Americans would take a job tomorrow if they could get one. If the president will, work on that with us, we're all in.
Okay, but the devil's in the details. Yes, there are jobs. There are jobs if you're highly skilled. There are jobs perhaps if you have a PhD. Not even sure about those. Sometimes if you're an engineer, you're going to do fine. You're a computer.
Exactly.
You're a job, you're going to do fine.
Exactly. We need to have jobs at all levels. If an expanding economy will create those entry-level jobs.
We don't have jobs at the lower levels. We don't have jobs at manufacturing levels.
That's why.
We don't have jobs at lower levels because your party has been for cutting the kinds of stimulus and packages and programs that help people at the lowest level. Let's talk about something really simple. It doesn't even require any government aid. Raising the minimum wage. The current minimum wage is $7.25. It is lower as a matter of real terms than it's ever been since the minimum wage has started. If you raise it to $10, you're basically raising it to the level it was in the 1960s. This means that the people who are working at these entry-level jobs can make enough money to feed their families, and all lower-level workers would get a bump up in wage that would definitely help the economy because people have more to spend, buy toys and Christmas.
Minimum wage are not career jobs for people with families. Minimum wage jobs are entry-level jobs for teenagers. They're jobs for people with zero skills, no skills. You go in, you prove to them you can go to work every day, that you can show up responsibly on time, that you can do your job. In 6 to 9 months, 2/3 of people at the minimum wage get a raise and start moving up the ladder.
And half of the people on minimum wage are the primary wage earners for their families. Actually, only about a quarter are teenagers.
That's actually a stat that I'll dispute with you.
Well, dispute it if you want. I mean, the people, they're one income families. Only about a quarter are teenagers. Only about a quarter are under 21. Of course, when minimum wage goes up, everyone's wages go up. The person who gets an increase 6 to 9 months later, that also goes up as well. At this point in our economy, we have an economy where
the person making $10 an hour. If you move the minimum wage to 10, they want 13. So, you've got an inflationary upward spiral, and you've got less money to pay unskilled workers, and you get more unemployment. Who wants that?
We have CEOs.
I want jobs for people, not jobs.
We have CEOs right now that are making billions and billions of dollars. And due to the corporate welfare that you and I pay for through our taxes, they can put it in a foreign country and never take it back and never pay taxes on it. There's special tax breaks for hedge fund owners and jet owners.
Wait. You can't put money in a foreign country and hide it over there. What you do is you earn it through business operations in a foreign country, and you don't pay taxes on it until you repatriate it. It's not being repatriated because the United States has the single most high corporate tax rate of any nation on the earth.
There's an easy answer.
If we would just lower the corporate tax and let them repatriate that money, then the government would grow, which is not a good thing.
There's an easy answer. You want to do business in the United States, you pay taxes on all your income, even the ones that you claim is earned in the Cayman Islands. And I don't think that many people, Apple or any, and it's not just Apple, any of these companies are making that much for the people of the Cayman Islands.
It's a tiny, is a very bad, evil company. This is good.
All the corporations are having shell companies in the Cayman Islands and Bahamas and Liechtenstein and all these places that don't have big populations for their products. And they use those as shell corporations so they can claim that all this money is offshore when it really isn't. GE, I can go on. There's a whole bunch of companies. They virtually all do it. If we taxed everybody, and I'm fine with lowering the corporate tax rate. Let's lower it to 25%, but make sure everybody pays.
Mark,
because right now, 2/3 of corporations pay zero tax.
If we lower the corporate tax rate to 25%, we are then tied for the highest corporate tax rate in the world. Why don't we get down around the middle, or better yet, give an incentive, get beneath the 50% mark?
Are you willing to make all corporations pay it?
Flows in?
Are you willing to make all corporations pay?
I think you and I would
right
agree
now,
that we need a
of
lot of tax simplification.
Pay
yes.
zero.
I think there's a lot of tax simplification and tax reform that needs to go on that allows people who use the tax code to skew their business operations, skew the market, and avoid taxes. We both would agree that's ridiculous.
Here's the thing. In the budget deal that is being discussed, and we don't know all the details yet, Paul Ryan and Patty Murray are keeping it pretty safe under the vest, probably because everyone likes it until they actually see the details.
Right.
So far everyone likes it, which is really cool. But it's being reported as a ceasefire, as no major deal, no grand bargain, no big corporate rate restructure that liberals and conservatives can agree on. No getting rid of hedge fund loopholes. The special things that allow multi-billionaires to pay less taxes than janitors. Nothing to do with ending sugar subsidies or any other subsidies that are in the budget. Basically, it's at best a Band-Aid over a gaping wound. Why is it that your party is so determined to protect billionaires at the expense of ordinary Americans?
Well, I don't think that's the case at all. And let me say that you are right. We don't know enough about this budget deal to really give it a ringing endorsement. What we can give a
we'll argue about it in a month when we know the details.
What we can give a ringing endorsement to is that apparently Patty Murray and Paul Ryan are acting like adults.
Yes.
They're sitting there. They're slowly and inexorably moving themselves closer and closer to a deal.
That in and of itself, we could say is a good thing, because we haven't seen that in Washington for a couple of years.
We had, I think it was 5 years ago, the Democrats stopped passing budgets, and this is the first time we're going to have a budget in 5 years.
We passed the budget all in level 2013 that your party refused to consider, but
we had our own budget that we sent you. You might remember budget deals start in
the one that ended food stamps.
In the House, the one that goes over to the Senate.
The one that repealed Obamacare.
If Harry Reid would have brought it up, he could have amended it as he liked. He had the majority. Look, they're acting like adults for the first time in 5 years. There may be a deal. I'm sure it's a deal that everyone can find fault with, but nonetheless, there may be a deal. We'll see how the details make people react.
If your party would give up on the corporate welfare, I think personally you're okay with it.
Was Solyndra corporate welfare? I would be glad to get rid of the $500 billion we lost with Solyndra. I'd be glad to get rid of that $500 billion.
Look, global warming is a fact. The seas are rising. The Arctic Ocean is no longer an ice cap. What, that global
We
warming
have
is a
more.
fact?
Yeah. Where
No,
did you
I
get
don't,
that?
I don't know any scientist that disputes it. I mean, there's really no one disputes that.
Mark, look,
except for some real psycho people.
let's do a whole show on global warming. Suffice to say, there has been absolutely no global warming for the last 17, 18 years.
Wow.
Even Michael Mann admit this
Mike.
in his latest speech.
You know,
Mr. Hockey Stick himself.
there
are no rising seas. We have more
99%
Arctic ice now at this point than in recent history.
Do I just have to show you the pictures? I mean,
Mark, we have more Arctic ice
the
now.
Northwest Passage they were looking for to go around that no one could get through, and they got stuck.
Mark,
Henry Hudson got stuck in Hudson's Bay. You can just go sailing around Alaska now. Soon we're going to hang out on Alaskan beaches.
Let's do a whole show on global warming, and I'll show you exactly.
I'll be happy to do a show on global warming because 99% or so of climate scientists agree with me, and the other 1% are paid for, hook, line, sinker by the Koch brothers. So there really is no dispute.
You can't really believe any of that, can you?
I believe all of it. I tell you something.
You can't really believe any of that.
No, there's no dispute. That's like disputing that the Earth is round.
Mark,
That's like disputing that gravity exists.
You've got people who are genuinely interested in science and looking at the numbers, and then you've got climate liars like Al Gore. You apparently are in the climate liar category. I'm not saying you are a liar, but there are climate liars, and there are people who look at the science.
Right.
The people who are looking at the science
99%.
say there is no global warming for the last 18 years.
I have never seen a climate scientist not paid for by the Koch brothers say there's no global warming.
Michael Mann, the most controversial guy, the guy who invented the hockey stick graph, etc. He says there is no global warming in the last 18 years.
I have to admit, I can't believe you're even arguing this point because I think most on the right would actually concede there's global warming and then argue about what the best thing is to fix it. You're saying there still isn't.
Let's do a whole show on this.
We should because there's the entire international body of
the
scientists agrees on this. There's a dispute.
The international consensus, which was never a consensus, and consensus is never science, has fallen apart. There is no international consensus anymore.
Well, you'll have to show me an article about that.
I will.
That's outside of Newsmax and Fox News. Show me one by a reputable source.
All right.
Because every article I've read, it's not even a question. No,
because
in no other country they even question it.
If you're
in no
reading,
other country,
if
you're owned by the Koch brothers do you even.
If you're reading the Al Gore Daily, then you're reading, a guy who has made, close to $1 trillion, on this global climate.
And the Arctic ice that had sat there for thousands of years and is now melted was
just bigger than ever. Bigger than ever.
That's not true. I'm going to show you pictures.
All right.
Well, I'll show you pictures back on the internet. The point is that we need to move to a different economy. I guess I can't even get there if you're disputing the axiom that global warming exists. I find that shocking. But the main thing I have a problem with is this corporate welfare to old technology like fossil fuels and coal company and hedge fund owners and sugar subsidies and big agribusinesses and all this money that could be going to giving people a better chance to succeed. Pharmaceutical companies as well. I want to talk about that when we come back.
All right.
So, folks, if you want to call in and join the discussion on global warming or anything else, feel free to do so. It's 571-749-1166. I am Mark Levine. He is Mike Lane. And we'll be right back right after these messages.
Never go away early.
It's true that I never go that early.
All right.
But
oral cancer.
I'm Eva Cohen, and I'm an oral cancer survivor. I didn't fit the profile. I didn't smoke or drink. I had no family history of cancer, no family history of cancer. I was 31 years old. 31 years old. I went to see my dentist about a sore in my mouth that wouldn't heal. It was oral cancer. I had to have a radical neck dissection and a portion of my tongue reconstructed. I didn't know if I was going to live or die.
I'm Surgeon General Richard Carmona. The survival rate for oral cancer is only 50%. Oral cancer can happen to anyone. If you have a sore or lesion in your mouth that doesn't heal within 2 weeks, see your dentist. Early detection is the key.
Early detection saves lives. I know.
1 in 8 Americans goes hungry. One idea helped change that. A community started a garden that blossomed into farmers markets. 1 in 6 children lives in poverty. One group of women found an answer by opening a daycare center that their neighbors could afford. Today, 36 million Americans live in poverty. But one by one, people are helping themselves and each other to change the picture of poverty to one of hope. For easy ways you can help, visit povertyusa.org.
2 words for you. Pop quiz. Ready? Name any funny movie. A drama. Name a mystery. And one more thing. Name the movie your kids saw today in science class.
Know what really matters. Know about your kid's school. And know about your kid. Find out 100 ways to know more, do more.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I am Mark Levine. I am debating the issues of the day with Mike Lane, Republican strategist. Moving back to income inequality, surely you see that the United States, the 50s, the 60s, and 70s is very different from the United States today. There was a time in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s when you worked hard, you could get a nice union job in a nice factory, you could make enough to afford a pension, you could actually put yourself through college. Just by my father, who did not have any money, basically could work enough in the summer to afford the tuition in a state school. Those days are gone. People today, kids are in more debt than ever before, and they're living in their parents' homes, and the entry-level jobs aren't there anymore, and even people with college degrees are having trouble with entry-level jobs. And all of this leads to an economy where we have CEOs making hundreds of millions, often billions and billions of dollars, and they don't even know a place to put all the money. It's a zero in a bank balance book for them. They have so much money, they don't know what to do with it all, while a lot of real Americans are struggling. And I submit to you that the minimum wage should be at least a living wage. If you are working hard, if you're working a 60-hour week, you shouldn't have to live in poverty.
Mark, what's wrong with the market wage? Why not let people's skills match the market and the demand for what they can do? Let them show they can work hard and let them work their way up and achieve that American dream that you say doesn't exist anymore, and I insist it does.
If you're working 60 hours a week, should you be able to not live in poverty?
Depends on what you're doing.
But depends on what you're doing?
Yeah.
If you're working 60 hours a week at the minimum wage, or even 40 hours a week, should you be able to work and raise a family on the minimum wage and not be in poverty?
Minimum wage jobs are not designed as a career opportunity for people who have families, Mark. The answer is no. Minimum wage jobs are different kind of jobs.
Then they have no jobs. Then they have no jobs at all.
No. You start in your minimum wage job. You prove to your employer that you can come to work every day, that you can dress reasonably, that you can get along with your fellow employees, and that you can contribute to the workforce. You work hard, you get ahead, you get a raise. You work hard, you get ahead more, and then you go get a new job. And pretty soon you're making $12 an hour, or $15 or $20 an hour, or $25 an hour. That's the way the economy works.
That's the theory. But as you know, there are people that have worked at Walmart for 20, 30, 40 years. They don't have health care. And what's ironic to me is that Republicans are so opposed to food stamps or housing aid or making sure that children have health care. They're opposed to all these things. And yet when Walmart is only paying $7.25 an hour,
first of all,
what that means is that the states and federal government have to feed the kids of the people who work at Walmart, have to provide health care for the kids who work at Walmart. You pay more as a taxpayer because Walmart's so chintzy than you would if Walmart were simply required to pay the minimum wage there is in Canada and France and England and every other industrialized nation.
Well, I'm glad that we're not every other European country, that's for sure. Look, nobody,
Canada pays $10 an hour.
Nobody in Walmart is making $7.20 an hour. The lowest paid person in the Walmart system, they start them off at $8.50 an hour. That's what Walmart does, okay? If you work hard, if you're there for 6-9 months, you get a raise. You start working your way up. The only people who should be at Walmart after a couple of years are the people who have been moved into the management program. Everybody else should be off getting another job doing something better.
It's not the way the world works, Mike. They don't even get health care at Walmart. They're not even provided for health care. So, once you pay for health care, you're getting below minimum.
Well, I understand they get health care effective the 1st of the year, Mark.
Well, that's good.
And
yes.
so
yes.
That,
and it's only because of President Obama. It's only because of the Affordable Care Act.
They should be
But here's the point. Here's the point. if you're going to argue that the public should not provide basic services, that the taxpayers shouldn't have to provide food and shelter and clothing to poor people,
I didn't say
to working
that.
poor people.
I didn't say that. I said that the minimum wage is a job killer, and that nobody should look forward to spending a career in a job,
People
in
don't.
a dead end position.
Do you think people want to be on the minimum wage, Mike? Do you think people try to be on the minimum wage? Do you think people are like, well, I just want to work on the minimum wage. I want to work 60 hours a week and bring home, $300 a week. People don't want that.
If you show up and if you keep your nose clean and if you do your job well, you're not making the minimum wage.
It's not true.
It is.
It's not true in America.
I already showed you that nobody at Walmart is making the minimum wage. They start them off at $8.50. You know what? Here's what a market wage does. Give me 30 seconds for this example. Let's use Walmart, okay? There's an economic boom going on in the Dakotas because of the fact that they have discovered oil there and they are desperate for workers. So people are going there, they're making their fortunes, they're making over $100,000 a year if they can get a job in the oil fields just, by showing up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what Walmart is paying entry-level people just because that's what the market wage demands? If you can get a job at Walmart, which you can because they're desperate, you start off at $18 an hour in the Dakotas for Walmart.
So we need to send everyone on a one-way ticket to North Dakota.
No, people can make their own way to North Dakota if they want an $18 an hour job. That's the way the market works, Mark. You don't have the government distorting all these things.
Let me ask you a question. If someone is working full-time, it's okay with you if they still live in poverty. And if it's not, who covers it?
If someone is doing a good job, if they're developing skills, if they're moving up, they're not going to be in poverty.
They are in poverty. You cannot make enough to live on the minimum wage. You certainly can in Washington, D.C.
Mark,
you can in New York City. You can in most of the nation's cities.
2/3 of all people who start off at $7.25 an hour get a raise within 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
2/3.
And then
nobody is sitting there doing career.
A year later, and then they're out of a job.
Well, you only get downsized in the Obama economy.
No. First of all, it's the Bush economy.
If we could get 6 years later, it's the Bush economy that we're in.
Well, no. We're doing better now because of President Obama. I'm talking about the recession that occurred a few years back. The heart of the issue is this. When Walmart moves into a town, what usually happens is the mom and pop stores that pay higher wages, they shut down from the competition, and those people get laid off. The people working at Walmart can't make enough to actually pay much taxes. They pay a little bit, but basically the city ends up paying more in public assistance when Walmart comes in than they used to. Walmart is a net cost to taxpayers because Walmart pays so low that the rest of us have to pay for food and health care and shelter. What I'm saying is, rather than having the taxpayer pay for these things, I'd rather the corporations pay when the person is working as hard as they possibly can.
The taxpayer at Walmart pays a huge amount of taxes. I'm not here to defend Walmart. They're a big corporation. I think most big corporations
I'm not saying it's unique to Walmart.
Good, okay?
We can talk about McDonald's. It doesn't have to be unique to Walmart.
I'm not here to defend any major corporation. I'm here to say that the government isn't the one who picks the winners and the losers. The market is the one who picks the winners and the losers. No matter.
So is the minimum wage too high in the 1960s? Because that's all we're asking for. $10 an hour would basically put us where we were in the 1960s.
I don't think there should be a minimum wage. I think there should be a market wage. And when you have a good economy, when you have corporations scrambling out there to find employees who will come to work on time and do the job, they're going to pay them well above what the minimum wage is. It's just an artificial
No, they're not.
floor.
Why should they? Why should they?
Because
if you have no minimum wage and people are starving in the streets, heck, if you can pay someone $2 an hour, you might as well pay someone $2 an hour.
People are only starving in the streets in the Obama economy. When you have a good economy, when you have like a Ronald Reagan economy, corporations were paying above the minimum wage because there were so many people creating so many jobs, they couldn't find enough workers, and they had to increase the amount that they were paying people measurably above the minimum wage to attract people to those jobs.
I'll tell you the difference.
That's the way a market economy works.
Under Ronald Reagan, under Bill Clinton, what we did is we had policies that actually discriminate against corporations who moved their jobs overseas and used, child labor in Thailand or Bangladesh.
I already told
or
you,
Mexico.
I'm not a fan of hiding your money overseas illegally. I'm just not a fan of that.
I'm not a fan of doing it legally either. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right. We need to have laws
have,
that actually punish corporations for closing down factories here and moving them to Mexico and Bangladesh and China, where they could pay workers 50 cents a day in slave-like conditions.
Then why don't we create incentives for people to keep their money here and keep their investments here?
We should. You want to know those incentives?
Let's lower the corporate income tax to about 15%. That would be the biggest single incentive you could have.
No, it's very simple. If you move your job, you move your factory overseas, we tax you more, not less. What a crazy idea. The idea that products that Americans buy...
You've just created the worldwide recession. When you start a trade war like that, when you start penalizing people for global investment, then those countries are going to retaliate, and they're going to put taxes on.
No, it's
and
very
the next
simple.
thing you know, there's no international market for global investment, and you've got a worldwide depression. That's what you've just caused.
You charge 25%. If they're paying 1% to the Cayman Islands, you subtract 1%. If they're paying 12% to Ireland, you subtract the 12%. Either way, it's the exact same money.
Okay, we
have an
attract
incentive to pick American
we attract
workers.
No foreign investment. We would be the
We're
highest.
at 35% now. We have foreign investment.
Right, and 25% would tie us for the highest corporate rate, income tax rate in the world.
Nobody's paying it, Mike. There was a time 30 years ago in the Reagan era, 2/3 of corporations paid taxes. Now, I think it's 25%. I'll check the exact numbers. I know it's way less than the
I already stipulated that you and I could come together in about 10 minutes for tax simplification and tax reform.
Here's the heart of my issue.
And get rid of all of these market-distorting loopholes. I already stipulated that.
Here's the heart of my issue. When you have poor people in America, there's really only a few ways for them to eat and have clothing and have health care and have shelter. Either it's provided for by the government or it's provided for by an employer. Now, your party doesn't want it provided for by the government very much. What I'm saying is let's make sure employers pay them enough to get by. That used to be how the world worked. In the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, you didn't have to have any skills. You could go in to a factory job, a union job at an auto plant. You didn't have to have any skills. You could work on an assembly line. And not only did you make above minimum wage and a pretty decent wage, you made enough that there only had to be one wage earner in the family. You made enough that there was a pension that was waiting for you at the end of the line. Those days are gone. And they're gone partly because corporations are using close to slave labor abroad and harming American workers in the process, and because unions are gone.
All right. The first thing I want to congratulate you on, Mark, is at least you're a purely intellectually consistent liberal, endorsed only assistance from the government and wholly and completely rejected private charities. Just what I thought a liberal would think.
Private charities cover very little of the problem.
You said there was no way that they could get anything other than a job and government assistance, and I submit that private charities are a much more efficient way.
I submit that private charities cover less than 5% of poverty in America.
Now, here's what we do. If we create a vibrant, expanding economy with investment that expands the pie and creates jobs, and employers are bidding against each other to bring these employees into their company, then everyone's going to make a lot more money.
That happened in the 50s, that happened in the 60s, it happened in the 90s as well.
And it'll happen again in 3 more years when we get a new president.
Didn't happen under George W. Bush. This has been a long trend.
No,
and it
actually hasn't, Mark. This is an Obama economy.
How can you blame
kind of
Obama
thing.
For that?
This is an Obama economy. Look.
I know you want to blame Obama for everything.
I blame him
How can you blame Obama for income inequality?
I blame him for the economy, because when people can't get jobs, that's what leads to income inequality. Your mass statistical kind of stuff. And you know what? If these people, these 11 million Americans who are desperately seeking work, could find jobs, then your whole income inequality argument would float away because it wouldn't exist.
Unemployment is down to 7%. That at least is working. As you know,
because people fall out of the workforce. That's why it's down to 7%. It's really 13%, but we won't talk about that.
Most of the George Bush bubble was because of corporations committing fraud on the American people with credit derivative swaps. That's how we're in the mess we're in. That's because Wall Street decided to gamble with our lives.
Mark, the whole world knows
they knew that they'd be bailed out.
The whole world knows it was the housing speculation bubble, and that was it.
By the Wall Street firms that basically bet on someone else's. Let me give you an example. I'm sure you'll appreciate it. There's a company that they're still buying credit derivatives from. They're basically betting that not that the loan to them will fail, but they're not guaranteeing their own loan. They're betting that this guy's loan to somebody else is going to fail, basically. And is 120.
There's more than just books at the library.
There's more than just books at the library.
Excuse me.
There's more than just books at the library.
Il y a plus que de livres à la bibliothèque.
Hello. You have a lot of great books here today. You know there's more than just books at the library.
I know.
There's more than just books at the library.
I don't want to be hooked to a machine.
I want all the medical treatment available to me.
I wouldn't want my family to have to make this decision.
My doctor knows what's best for me.
An advance directive is your life on your terms. Talk with your family. Decide what's right for you. Then put it in writing.
Documenting my wishes today means my family won't have to make heart-wrenching decisions later.
To learn more, visit www.putitinwriting.org.
1,200 American youth run away from their homes every day. The National Runaway Switchboard is here to help. 1-800-RUNAWAY. If you are a runaway, thinking about running away from home, or a parent or guardian concerned about issues facing your child, call us 24 hours a day. 1-800-RUNAWAY. In times of crisis, hope is just a phone call away. 1-800.
Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. My guest here is Mike Lane, Republican strategist. Mike, I was just looking in the break, just Googled climate change, and apparently there is the Committee on Understanding and Monitoring Abrupt Climate Change and Its Impacts, Board on Atmospheric Sciences and Climate, Division on Earth and Life Studies, National Research Council, has been talking about the abrupt problems of climate change. It's reported in the New York Times. Nobody really disputes this. It says the vast majority of climate scientists agree about global warming. It's the latest in a string of reports to consider blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and on.
Well, first of all, two things on that. First of all, I emphatically reject the New York Times as a legitimate, unbiased source.
What about the panel?
All right. But secondly, I want to know who's funding that panel.
No one. It's a nonprofit.
No one. They just sort of exist, right? They don't get their funding.
It's a nonprofit group. They are funded by various nations all over the world.
United States included?
Sure.
I rest my case.
They're scientists that are reporting to the government.
Mark, scientists are bought and paid for every day. You told me that Trevor was buying and paying for scientists.
I'll find you a bunch of university scientists.
Barack Obama buys and pays for scientists on a daily basis.
We definitely need to have a whole show on global warming. I'll bring a guest here. We'll bring a climate scientist on, and you can bring your own. We'll let them both debate each other. That would actually be a really good show. I'd like that. I want to talk about.
You know what? For the record, I'm sort of a little black sheep in part of my family. My brother-in-law won part of the Nobel Prize for the the United Nations Intergovernmental Climate Panel back in 2007. He was part of that team, and he shares that Nobel Prize.
And he believes that global warming exists?
You know, my brother-in-law is a smart guy. He just doesn't know everything.
So he does. So your brother-in-law is a climate scientist, and he agrees with me.
No. He's not a climate scientist. No, he was part of the panel. He is an urban geographer specializing in urban transportation.
And your brother-in-law agrees with me that global warming is a real and severe problem.
He would be on your team.
Yes. And that's no insult to your brother-in-law. It's actually quite a compliment. It shows that you can have in your family reasonable people. My point is that the vast majority, 95-97%, agree with me on this
Mark,
issue. But
consensus
we'll move on.
is not science. And there is no consensus anymore.
Well, some people believe the Earth is flat, so maybe you should hang out with them.
I think Al Gore is one of them.
Hang out with them, Mike. I want to talk about your Pope. You're Catholic.
I am.
And I have to say, while the Pope is not my spiritual leader, I have found more to like, spiritually, politically, and otherwise, in Pope Francis than I ever thought possible in a Pope. I got to say, I as someone who, frankly, has not been particularly listening to popes. Like I said, it's not my spiritual leader. Pope Francis, to me, has done some amazing things. He has shown a genuine humility And I think respect for what I think of when I think of the best of Christianity, getting rid of a lot of the gilded nature of the papacy and washing sinners' feet and going and ministering as a priest in Rome and giving up the fancy apartment digs. And I just have to say that I'm very impressed by his style and by what he has to say, and he seems to be cleaning up a lot of the Vatican bureaucracy. He seems to be playing down a lot of the divisive issues, abortion and gay rights, and playing up concern for the poor. And I just, I'm not often praising the Catholic Church. I want to give a lot of respect where respect is due. I'm very impressed with this man.
He's off to a good start. He's emphasizing the right things. I think that, he is probably the right man for this time. He almost, by the way, came in second place the last time. He was almost Pope when we got Benedict.
Not a big fan of the Pope prior to Pope Francis. I'll just say Pope Benedict did not impress me much.
Anyway, Francis is doing very well. I look forward to more of him. I think he's inspiring a lot of people to re-examine the way they look at their church and the way they respond to the call of their church. I do like his focus on the poor. I think it's very, very good. I think that's probably the most important thing that a church can do and focus on.
And I think it's the leading cause that he fights, and he doesn't just fight it with words. I think he fights it with deeds, and I have a lot of respect for that. I think too many people, it's word but not deed, but for him it clearly is both. And I just wanted
leadership
to say
by example, and
That's
he's
right.
certainly doing it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about. I don't have a good segue for this, so I'll just jump right into it. There was a deal made recently between the United States and Iran. It's a deal that is an interim deal. It's a 6-month deal. It's complex, but basically what it does is Iran has to dilute its 20% enriched uranium. You need 90% for a bomb, but the percentages are a little tricky because 20% is like 90% of the way to 90%. So. But they're going to get rid of the 20%. They're not going to enrich past 5%. They're going to cut off the production of a new plutonium facility. And in return, they're going to get a modest, I would argue, modest relief of sanctions. It's about $6-7 billion. They're not cutting.
Actually, I think it's about 60 or 70 billion, not 6 or 7. But
no, I think it's 6 or 7.
Okay.
We'll check that.
It matters not. They're getting sanctions relief.
They're getting some sanctions relief, but they're not getting relief on the big oil sanctions that are the ones that are really crippling to them. I like this deal, and I think you know that I am no fan of the government of Iran, and I firmly believe they were developing a nuclear weapon, and I certainly don't trust them, and I would support a military solution, frankly, to prevent them from getting nuclear weapons. But it seems to me that an interim deal, this isn't such a bad one because it goes 6 months. If they cheat, and they may well cheat, I'm not saying I trust them. If they cheat, then it seems to me with the IAEA there every day verifying it, then we can build the worldwide coalition we need to support some kind of military action. And in the best possible case, they don't cheat, and we actually are on the way to keeping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. What's not to like?
I think it's actually more likely rather than less likely that we have to go to war over this now.
If we do, this is the stage. This is you cheated on the deal. I mean, the deal itself is a good one because...
You know what, Mark? We don't need them cheating on the deal. We need them out of compliance with the UN resolutions on nuclear proliferation, and specifically as it applies to them. We don't need them, to take the final swing to develop the bomb.
Are you advocating military action? I mean, you're saying if there was no deal, that Obama should have bombed them? You don't think they should have tried to have a deal?
No, I think we should have ratcheted up the sanctions rather than releasing, softening the sanctions. I think the sanctions were what brought them to the bargaining table in the first place.
Agreed.
I think that by ratcheting it up and making it life even more miserable for them, we were more likely to get a deal.
But what's your prediction for the next 6 months? Do you think they'll cheat on this deal?
Oh, yes. I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell. Look, this guy Rouhani is a lying sack of,
So if they're going to cheat on the deal, do you think the IAEA won't discover it? Do you think they will? Because I think you'd have to agree the IAEA is one of the more competent international organizations
I think
out
they'll
there.
be kept away from being able to prove it. I think they'll be, locked out. I think there are facilities.
They're in every facility every day. There's 24-hour monitoring.
And they're going to be locked out eventually, just the way they were in Iraq when they were playing the little runaround.
But that hasn't happened yet.
No, not yet. But it's only been 2 weeks.
But here's the thing: if you support military action against Iran,
I don't support military action yet. I support increasing the sanctions and trying to really break them. That's what I support.
But here's the thing: to get the support for that, you have to show that they are indeed breaking a deal. It seems to me that before we laid this marker, they were just marching off, developing a nuclear weapons with no agreement that they said they would adhere to, and so and also there's really no support in America for any kind of military action against Iran. I mean, I've supported a no-fly zone in Syria for about 3 years, and I'm crying in the wilderness because neither liberals nor conservatives are with me on this one. I still support it. I've been consistent. But I recognize there is a huge, after Iraq, after Afghanistan, America does not want any military action in the Middle East. And in order to persuade Americans and we should never go to war without having Americans support it, I think you'd agree with that. We have to have a basis.
I agree with that 99%, but there are times when the stakes are so egregious, and Iran getting a nuclear bomb is one of those things that I would hope the commander-in-chief would take the military action necessary to prevent that, regardless
and President Obama
of where
has
the
said
American
he would.
people are standing.
He said no options off the table. What I'm saying is we both have the same goal, and the goal is Iran not develop a nuclear weapon. Okay, your strategy, I think, was no deal at all, ratchet up the sanctions. And at the same time, while the people get hurt by the sanctions and they don't like their government very much, it doesn't really matter. They tried a green revolution. It didn't succeed.
The government is getting hurt by the sanctions.
Of course they are.
It's not just the
right. But they're not that far away from a nuclear weapon. It seems to me that your strategy of just increasing sanctions and not having any deal at all would not have had a lot of worldwide support. It wouldn't have had a lot of American support. And they probably would have developed a nuclear weapon anyway.
We were doing pretty well. Now we're unraveling the sanctions, and
we're not unraveling the sanctions. There's one body of freezed funds that's been released, and it's being released slowly. It's not even being released all at once.
A little bit more than that, but there are companies actually that get to participate in trade with Iran now under this deal. Once those companies start making money and start having an economic thing, do you think there's a snowball's chance in hell of reinstituting
there was
these
economic
sanctions?
thing before.
It's not going to happen.
Iran had deals with Japan and China.
It took us 5 years to get these sanctions in place and to get the support we did. Once we start unraveling these sanctions, we've lost the support, we've lost the momentum.
We need to keep it going. The Security Council has done the international sanctions. Those are not unraveling. The only thing that's unraveling is a few U.S.-based sanctions. And again, I come back to this idea.
And we're not going to be able to put them back in.
Sure we are.
No way we're going to be able to put them back in.
The President can take them off. The President can put them back on.
But
it doesn't even require congressional action.
But he's not going to get any compliance, Mark. That's the problem.
If there's no compliance, we are back to the military option, which was always on the table.
It's more likely that we're going to have the military option as a result of unraveling the sanctions than it would be if we kept the sanctions on and ratcheted them up.
I disagree. I think that if we had kept the sanctions on and ratcheted them up, Iran would have raced to get a nuclear weapon. They'd have no constraints whatsoever, other than the people being upset. And they already put down brutally the people when they tried to overthrow the government 3-4 years ago. So they would ratchet up, recognize that once you get a nuclear weapon, suddenly you set the terms of the deal. And kind of like North Korea. When we come back, I want to talk about what happened with North Korea, because I actually think it's illustrative. You may think it proves your point, but I think it's illustrative to what's happening in Iran right now, because I think that Bill Clinton actually managed to keep North Korea from getting a nuclear weapon. George Bush turned his eyes away, and North Korea got one. And the trick with Iran is just keeping the focus on. But I'll let you respond to that. I know you want to when we come back. And we'll be right back with more of the Inside Scoop right after this.
A religious duty.
Today, materials that can be used to make nuclear weapons are stored in more than 40 countries.
Sometimes protected by just a chain link fence.
Yet not enough is being done to lock down these materials
before terrorists steal them. Why did we learn all this?
My mother,
my son,
my sister-in-law
were all murdered September 11th.
Help protect America.
Together we can. Please join us.
The stem cell issue is being debated throughout the country. Truth is, most everyone has an opinion, even if they don't know the facts.
Let's stop arguing and start really understanding the potential of stem cell research.
For us and for millions of Americans living with disabilities, get the facts.
Call 1-877-842-3442 for free information from the Stem Cell Research Foundation. That's 1-877-842-3442.
Following the tragic events of September 11th, there have been hundreds of violent attacks against innocent Americans.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
Remember, please stop the hate.
We're stronger when we are united.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
One nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice
for all. In America, there's either room for everyone, or it's not America. Don't pick the wrong fight.
Let's keep America land of the free.
Stop the hate.
Planning a home renovation? Put this at the top of your to-do list. Because after 10 years, none of you are protected against tetanus and another potentially fatal disease, diphtheria. A minor injury, such as a cut or a scrape, can put you at risk for a tetanus infection. And while safety gear offers some protection, an up-to-date vaccination called the TD Booster is the best insurance against tetanus. So get the TD Booster. If it's been 10, do it again.
Why do you keep so many icons on your desk?
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. Here is your last chance to call in if you want. It is 571-749-1166. And you can dial in and join the discussion with Mike Lane, president of Intelligent Strategies, and me. Mike, let me just make my North Korean analogy here, and then we'll move on to another topic. North Korea was developing a nuclear weapon hand over fist. In the 1990s, Bill Clinton made a deal with North Korea. That deal involved the IAEA, the same International Atomic Energy Agency that I think you have to give some credit to, because when they were in North Korea did not develop a nuclear bomb. No one thinks they did. While the IAEA was in there monitoring every day, the IAEA was right about North Korea. They were right that Iraq did not have nuclear weapons. They were right that Syria was developing them, and they're right that Iran's been developing them. They've been right 4 times. I realize a lot of UN agencies are not very competent. This one, I think you have to agree, is one of the most competent international organizations we have. What happened with North Korea, the IAEA was in there every day. They verified it. They did not develop nuclear weapons. Then in 02, 03, 04, we invade Iraq and Afghanistan. North Korea says, they're not watching us anymore. They kicked the IAEA inspectors out, and they quickly develop nuclear weapons. But even then, it takes a couple years. I remember when it was happening. I remember telling everyone they're developing it. My point is this. As long as IAEA inspectors are in Iran, I actually do have faith that Iran cannot develop a nuclear weapon while those inspectors are there. Once they're kicked out, if they're kicked out, then absolutely we have to take action. But I think that's a pretty close to a fail-safe, those inspectors. You disagree?
Well, I think inspectors there are infinitely better than inspectors not there, without a doubt. What you've done is a couple things. Number one, just like North Korea, which reneged on its deal,
right.
I think that we can count on President Rouhani in Iran to renege on whatever deal he comes across.
Okay.
The second thing is, I don't think we know where all their facilities are. I think they've got more than just the rumored one or two.
And Arawak. There's at least 4 that we know about.
I think they've got a lot buried underground. I think there's a lot more going on there that we know about. And I think that it's unlikely that the IAEA inspectors will have the opportunity to inspect everything they have.
But it's interesting because North Korea didn't manage to achieve nuclear weapons while the IAEA was there, underground
because they weren't
otherwise.
as smart as the Iranians. They didn't have the hidden underground ones that we didn't know about.
Okay, well, I think the IAEA being there, inspecting, watching. But here's the thing: if Rouhani reneges, you and I will both support taking military action. I have to tell you, though, I think that the vast majority of the American people, Republican and Democrat, are not with us on this one, even if he reneges. There is such war weariness in this country that at the very least you need reneging on a deal in order to persuade anyone to take military action, because I don't think there's enough support in either party for it.
I don't want Iran to get the bomb.
I don't either. I don't either. You and I agree on this.
We don't need them to renege and get the bomb. I don't want them to get the bomb. It's almost the end of the world if Iran gets the bomb.
Well, it becomes a nuclear arms race. Then Saudi Arabia and Turkey and Egypt
the whole
and
region,
Al-Qaeda.
and guess what?
No. You don't have to convince me of that.
One thing
the question
about,
is the best way for it to happen.
Rouhani is not trustworthy. Okay, this guy is he's
chosen by the Khamenei, the supreme leader, just like we all are.
He is the handpicked supreme leader.
Netanyahu called him a wolf in sheep's clothing.
We were supposed to, and Netanyahu was right about this guy. He is alleged to be a moderate. He's not. He's alleged to be the new voice. He's not. Case in point, today there was a study by Amnesty Watch, or not Amnesty Watch, one of those groups that monitors human rights and things like that.
Human Rights Watch.
Political executions are up 100% since Rouhani took over.
No, look at the brutality that's going on in Syria. It's because of Iranian arms and weapons and Hezbollah that hundreds of thousands are being murdered in Syria.
This is a guy who's twice as bad as Ahmadinejad in terms of that stuff, and we're trusting him?
Both of them are puppets. It's the supreme leader Khamenei is in charge and working his will through Rouhani.
Should Obama go there next spring?
No.
All right.
To Iran? No.
We'll see.
No, I don't think so. But I do think this deal actually provides the best of both worlds. If they actually manage to stop, that's nirvana. That would be terrific. Even you would be praising Obama then. If they do renege on the deal, as you and I think it's probable, then I think we have the casus belli, that the Latin for the cause of war, that I don't think we have right now. I just look at the American people, and they weren't willing to help the Syrian people who are being massacred in massive numbers in the most horrendous humanitarian crisis I think the world faces right now. And the American people on the left and the right just went, which really hurt me. I wrote articles about it. No one was listening. If the American people weren't willing to do that, they're not going to be willing to go to war with Iran absent a really strong casus belli, a cause of war, which is why I like the deal. Because I think when they break the deal, that gives us the reason to go in.
Mark,
and if they don't break it, that's nirvana.
That's just circular reasoning that we're setting them up to break the deal so that we can go to war. I don't want to go to war. Let me say this. How can
we stop them from getting nuclear weapons without bombing?
Last thing. I hope I am dead wrong about Rouhani, and he can be a man that we can deal with.
I'll tell you
this.
I hope that. I think one thing I don't trust Rouhani, but I do know from my experience and all, just the Iranian people themselves, the Persian people, are some of the most pro-American people in the Middle East. They are actually more pro-American than most of the Arabs in the Middle East, or more pro-Israel than most of the Arabs in the Middle East. The Persian people are living under dictatorship. And we should always make the distinction, and I make this all the time whenever I can, between the Iranian people and the Iranian leaders. I don't trust Khamenei, I don't trust Rouhani, I don't trust Ahmadinejad, but I do think the Iranian people don't want this. And I think actually they chose Rouhani because he was, at least publicly, the least bad option. I recognize he was chosen by the leaders, and 200 candidates were rejected from even running in the election. But my point is that if we do have to take military action, I hope it is as discreet, discrete as possible, as limited as possible, that we attack the nuclear facilities, and that this not be seen as a general war against Iran.
I mean, there's so many of them, and they're all spread out. I mean, there's no such thing as a discrete strike against their nuclear industry.
My point is, we have to take 12 targets out, but we're not going to go to war, a full war with Iran. That would be a major mistake. As we close, I want to talk about the National Security Agency. As you know, right here on this program, when George Bush was spying on hundreds of millions of Americans, I was extremely upset. I begin every TV segment. Now you've been here, I don't know, 100 times, maybe not that many, but a lot. The government is spying on hundreds of millions of Americans. That segment was taped, I think, in 2005, 2006.
And that would find out it's 5 billion people worldwide.
It's still happening. It's happening just as severe as it ever did in the Bush administration.
It's actually doubled down.
It is emails. It is where we go on the internet. Apparently, they're now monitoring World of Warcraft, as well as going into mosques and I presume churches and synagogues as well. Look, the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution says that I have it with me. I always do. Other pocket this time, that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, papers, and effects. I don't even need to read it. Here it is. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. No warrant shall issue upon probable cause. I still am a firm believer in the Fourth Amendment. I think George Bush violated it. I think Barack Obama violated it. And I think Edward Snowden is a hero. I wouldn't say that about some of the other whistleblowers, but this is a guy, as far as we know, hasn't disclosed anything to the Soviets, to the Russians, or the Chinese. But what he has disclosed is to the American people something that I have long suspected and talked about in this program. There is no need to cast a net that encompasses everyone. You cannot spy on 5 billion people worldwide and 350 million Americans. That's not the particularity that the Fourth Amendment is describing. I have no problem getting warrants. This is a bad guy. This is a guy who's a friend with a terrorist. You've got reasonable suspicion. Spy on them all you want. But stop tracking wherever we go on the internet. And I hope this is something that liberals and conservatives can join together on, because we're going to have to restrain all future presidents, whether Democrats or Republicans.
Mark, it's not only wherever you go on the internet that's being spied on, it's wherever you go at
Yeah, the
all.
GPS, your phones.
If you have a
Right.
phone, you're being spied on.
That's true.
You know, that's a simple thing. You carry your Constitution around in your pocket. You know, I used to carry the Constitution in my pocket. Now I carry the Constitution in my phone. If I was to call up the Constitution right now, the NSA would know that I'm reading the Constitution. That's as simple as it gets.
That's dangerous, isn't it?
I'm going to poke a needle in the president here. Yes, you complained very vociferously and very emotionally and quite accurately
I feel the same way.
about George Bush. This is exactly what Barack Obama explicitly said he was coming to Washington to stop. This was going to end. He was going to get rid of it. There was no more spying on the American people. And now the long-lost question as to where was he the night of Benghazi? Why was he not in the Situation Room? Why didn't we know? Now I know he was upstairs reading my emails. You know, I mean,
I doubt it.
or listening to my phone calls, whatever it was.
The one advantage we have as Americans is that there's 350 million of us, and they just don't have enough people to read
Mark,
all of the crap that goes in my
what?
email box
You
and
know
all
what?
the spam and all of the junk ads.
They absolutely do. Their computers will read that stuff and they'll kick out anything they want. And believe me,
I think actually there's too much just data for it to sort it all
the
through.
computers
But
kick it all out.
Let me ask you this. There was a recent bill by Libertarian Tea Party Justin Amash, and old school liberal John Conyers. I'm a big fan of John Conyers. He's the ranking Democrat in the House Judiciary Committee. He's been on my show before. It's hard to get more liberal than John Conyers. It's hard to get more, we'll say libertarian, I don't know if conservative is the right word, than Congressman Amash. They had a bill together in the House, as you well know, that almost put a stop to this. They got within 10 votes of passage. Would you support the Amash-Conyers bill, which I support?
I'd have to look at it. Look, here's the thing. I'm going to be honest. I defended President Bush when he did a little bit of this. And
Yes, you did.
And I'll defend President Obama
You
on
will?
a little bit. I will. And here's what I want. I want to know what's going on, and the president is lying to us, and he's not telling us what's going on. He said it was going to be a transparent administration. It's
here's what they tell us.
Hang on, it's the most opaque administration there is. Here's what I want. I want to know what they're doing and why they're doing it, and they have a chance to convince me.
They've answered that.
They really do. No, they haven't. They have a chance to convince me. The last thing I want to happen is for a nuclear device to explode in the middle of Midtown Manhattan and take away the entire New York City because we were not vigilant and we didn't keep track of what was going on because we were too afraid that we'd be accused of spying.
Here's what they tell us.
There's a balance there.
Here's what they tell us.
The president's not striking the balance. I want to know what they're doing.
Let's at least say what they're telling us. What they're telling us is that they are tracking everybody.
No, Eric Snowden told us that. They didn't tell us that.
They admitted it after Snowden told us
Jim Clapper lied about it. The director
Yes, he did.
He lied about it to Congress.
He should be fired.
Okay, I'm with you.
Okay. When Snowden told us about it, they admitted to it, and what they said is they're tracking everyone incidentally, is what they said.
No,
the reason they're doing it,
they were accidentally tracking them incidentally.
Okay. The reason they're doing it, they said, is because if they have this known terrorist, and then they have this associate of the terrorist, they can find out by sifting through all the people that are talking with this terrorist right or left. I say, if that's really what they're doing, then it's very simple. Get a warrant that says you can track any known or unknown associates of terrorist X or terrorist group X. That's fine. I'm okay with large warrants. I'm just not okay with warrants that apply to 350 million Americans. Those warrants are way too large.
Or 500 billion people.
5 billion. There's still not 5
right,
billion.
5 billion. You're right.
Mike Lane, thanks for coming here on the Inside Scoop. Safe drive home. Safe drive to all of you as well.
Remember, you're being spied on.
And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone. We'll be back with more of the Inside Scoop next week.